Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of AACRAO's Credential Chats. Really excited to do an in-person one with Ryan and Lena. We are at the AACRAO conference, who are AACRAO's partners in the annual Convergence Conference, happening in late fall in Washington, D.C. for the third year this year. But Lena and Ryan, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves to our Credential Chat audience and just sharing what it is that you do at your institutions, and then we'll get into what we're going to talk about today.
Hello, I'm Ryan Torma. I'm the Associate Dean for Professional Development and Lifelong Learning at the University of Minnesota College of Continuing and Professional Studies, and have been working with Noah and Lena on the AACRAO Council for Credential Innovation, which works on credential leadership within the AACRAO community.
And I'm Lena Patterson. I'm the Assistant Dean Programs at the Chang School of Continuing Education at Toronto Metropolitan University, so up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And Ryan and I have been co-chairs of the Council for Credential Innovation over this past year.
And so we're already getting international with our work here. It feels like huge impact. And Mark McConaughey, who we've had on Credential Chats, is also representing AACRAO on the Council for Credential Innovation. But one of the things that was really excited to chat with you all about is this tool that the council came up with, that you two really kind of were part of the team that created and prototyped this thing. And if you wouldn't mind, just kind of share just what is it and what's the why behind it.
Sure. Well, we created a thing called the Purpose Profile, which is a tool to help organizations think about the alignment of audience, purpose, program, and credential in their micro-credential or their alternative credential programs. And it's a short little 2-page document that really steps people through just thinking about who their audience is, what they're going after, and so that they can have really productive conversations about creating a meaningful credential.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we created this tool is because Ryan and I were having experiences within our own institutions where there was a lot of confusion around what the component parts of a micro-credential project might look like, who needs to be involved, what kinds of questions you might ask when you're thinking about those really nuanced questions of audience, of purpose, and then getting into design, getting into some of the operational considerations of how you might roll that micro-credential program out. So we felt there was a lot to unpack that hadn't quite been articulated, and that this tool would serve as a conversation starter, or what do you call it, a conversation tool, guide.
Facilitator
I call
thing?
it a dialogic tool.
That's good.
That's big words.
But it's that idea of just giving a place and a structure to some of the things that you might want to think about when you are either starting a new alternative credential program or launching something new.
And I just love that, when you talked about confusion, because AACRAO put out a report a little less than 2 years ago called Credential Confusion in response to surveying our members. And that's where we're at. We have these acronyms, we have these buzzwords, we have these big words. And, unlike when I hear you say boot and I say about, and it's not causing any dissonance there in this space of innovative credentials, we are kind of getting hung up on that. And that here's this tool with a very simple name that really is what it says it is, that for any of us who have kids in school maybe who are using graphic organizers, when I look at what you all created, I see just graphic organizer, take this confusing stuff and chunk it out and make it comprehensible.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've noticed as we've had conversations with each other, with our colleagues, as we've attended Convergence, I think some of this actually grew out of some conversations at Convergence in which we noticed a couple of things happening. So one is noticing the incredible variety of credentials and the context for use for that. So that these could be credentials that are embedded in degree-bearing courses, or degrees with credit-bearing courses, or you've got things that are really workforce aligned, or things that are skill aligned, and just really, really different types of programs that might use a badge or a certificate, and so that all kind of gets lumped together when we talk about alternative credentials. The second piece is we noticed, and this was a couple years ago, I think things are improving a bit, is there was a real emphasis on the technology tool, not around what does the credential do for the learner and who is that learner. And so the technology is really important, it's really necessary, but we also wanted to give people some support in really thinking about who's this for and why does it matter?
And how does the design of the experience suit that purpose? That's the additional piece, right? Because we saw a lot of circumstances in our own institutions where there might have been a clear purpose, but the design that was being used was just replicating all of our traditional models of curriculum and design.
Which could be okay if that aligns with the purpose.
Exactly. But there was just no, because of the, I think, desire to get involved, to start exploring, there was a lot of action that was taken that might not have been always purposeful. There was some money available, there was some incentive to kind of get up and go. And so, we're reaching a nice state of maturity now where we're really starting to think a little bit more purposefully about what it is that we're doing and why.
I think that's one of the things that I love about your approach is that, you chunk out these very not overwhelming sort of fields. You have help text, to contextualize what you're really asking about, and that there's a chance without feeling intimidated, without feeling overwhelmed, to be vulnerable and answer these questions. And I think there's a real power if, as we're filling it out, we're remembering what it's called.
Yeah.
It's asking these questions. What is the description of this? What are, it's asking these really simple questions. And if we remember that if we can anchor it in our purpose, it feels to me like we're going to end up in a very different place in our design and our strategy than if we're, if we don't have that little spinny top in a safe,
Yes.
to reference Inception.
And we might start to say no to some things, right? We might, and this is kind of one of the things about micro-credentials or the alternative credential space that I've always felt is that it's not a panacea, right? It's not going to solve every single problem that we have in higher ed. It depends on what your approach is.
It's a threat to my job.
It's just one of the tools in our toolbox, right? It's one of the things that we have to work with. And I think there was maybe a little bit of a blurring of the lines there when then there was a desire like, it's gonna solve all of these problems, rather than really understanding, okay, what is it actually about? What problem are we trying to solve? Where's the gap? And how do we go about filling that gap so that we can really help people?
Part of what I think we wanted to do with it as a dialogic tool is to also help people in their institutions, because for people who are working on micro-credentials, different approaches to this work, the folks that they might be working with in their institutions, whether that's faculty, staff, folks who may have heard the word badge, may have heard the word certificate, may have heard the word micro-credential, but maybe don't really know fully what that is or what it works in, certainly aren't going to be thinking about, well, what's the current open badge standard? And is that integrating with LER 3.0? Like that, all important things, but are there ways that we can help bring people on our campuses into conversations that are speaking in language that they care about? Like, who's this for? Why does it matter? And yeah, we're going to get to the technical stuff, but let's really talk about what kind of drives our mission, what drives our passion as we're supporting learners.
And if we're working on things from a place of mission and passion and what we believe in, I think in my own experience, work gets easier in general, right? And it feels just more meaningful, more impactful. Ryan, something I want to go back to that you kind of hinted at there is the notion that an institution might take this very simple tool, and we would invite you to share it with the Council for Credential Innovation, because the idea is to curate a library of these things so that people can find similar instances of it, to not have to start from scratch and with a blank canvas, but have a coloring book there for themselves. But one of the things I heard you kind of hinting at, Ryan, is that at your institution, you might not do this once, that this tool can be used for any given credential idea that we want to do, that this is not for the entire initiative necessarily. This could be completely different from credential to credential.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we designed it to be really kind of tactical on the ground, really focused on a credential, a program. So it's not going to really help you with your portfolio strategy in the same way, though maybe you could adapt it in that way. But it's really about helping to develop a conversation about, hey, we're going to try and serve this particular audience with this particular program, with this particular credential. And you could have really different types of learners that you want to serve with a credential. So, maybe you want to provide for someone who's working on an advanced degree and they've got a whole bunch of stuff to do to get ready to get their advanced degree. You could issue badges for that as kind of stage gate, and you could use the purpose profile to help you really understand what that learner needs. Or you might say like, oh, we've got this really great workforce opportunity where we want to do a continuing ed program that really serves a very particular workforce need. And we're going to look at that audience and who we need to work with on that and how this program and credential is going to align to that workforce need. Both are entirely possible because it's a really open-ended tool.
Yeah, and one of the, I think, beautiful things that could come out of this is as people start filling it out, we're hoping that those are going to get shared and that we're going to end up with, we always kind of thought of it as like a case book or something that people can flip through and start to see all of these different amazing and interesting applications of alternative credentials mapped out using a structured format, right? So it's very different from just going to someone's website and seeing the description, right? You get a little bit of under the hood insight into the component parts and how they've thought about it. And we've started kind of formulating categories in our minds about what some of those different types of alternative credentials might be according to those, like Ryan just gave 2 perfect examples, right? It's like the degree completion or continuation one versus the workforce one. Both very different purposes. Those are going to have very different audiences in very different circumstances. And then we would also hope then that the design of the experience would also change or be tailored to that audience that we're working to support.
I love that. And just in case people think when you say this little resource, that you're being hyperbolic, this purpose profile is not a large document.
It is 2 pages. Our goal was 1. I think we were like, oh, we get 1 page.
Sorry, it might have been my edits. They were very iterative and collaborative on this.
Fantastic suggestions from the other members of the CCI, and we're hoping for more. Like, we hope the more that this gets out there, that people give us feedback on what might be missing, right? Or where things might need to be tweaked. And we hope then that they will also look at the profile and in some cases where they already have a mechanism internally with their institution to make decisions on alternative credentials, which many institutions have now, that they will be able to use what we've done to maybe add some elements or adjust some elements to their internal process at their institution. Therefore, hopefully, all moving towards a more kind of unified understanding of what it is that we're talking about and why.
And I just love that so much that what we're going towards is not complicated. Like the whole point of the tool is to help us simplify and feel comfortable with what comes down to change management, really.
Okay.
Like it's not credentialing, it's change management, right? Just knowing why we're doing what we're doing, and that as we do it, we share it with you, and then people who come after us, or when we're doing something else and we're unsure, we'll be able to find other people's purpose profiles, and control C that to the extent that it makes sense for us, and move from this place of confusion to this demystified place of comfort and confidence.
Yeah, and so much of that is making the tacit explicit, right? Like things that we just do, that we don't even think about, that we kind of gloss over, making that explicit, making that transparent within our own institutions, and then hopefully cross-institution as well.
Yeah, one of the things I'm really hoping that the examples can do over time is as folks are working in their institutions, they might be able to look through a library of things and say like, oh, I want to do something like that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they can take that to their institution, and when someone's maybe new to the credentialing space, you can say like, see, it looks kind of like this, but we're going to do it in
Yeah.
blue instead of green.
Yeah.
And then it's a way to start building imagination around what can be a confusing environment for people who maybe are new to the space.
Or you'll know, okay, I got to go talk to someone at this institution,
Yes.
to learn more about what went into this, because so it can also build networks of community, of collaborators, to better understand and unpack what's involved in achieving that goal. Yeah, but you're right. Like that's that change management, like current state, future state. We're just trying to bridge the gap.
Yeah, and I'm all about it. And just thank you so much, Ryan and Lena, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us, and for all of our audience. Hopefully this recording worked every time the screen went dark, that didn't go dark for you. Apologies if it did. But just thank you, and have a badge worthy week, everybody. So long.
Bye.